Plessy vs. Ferguson by Tara Franks and Olivia Phillips. In 1890, during a post-Civil War era of Louisiana, laws were passed against black people called Black Codes or Jim Crow laws. One example of these is the separate but equal use of railroads. This allowed for railroads to have two different railroad cars, one for the white and one for colored races. Segregationists were excited and pleased with these laws, but local African American leaders such as Louis A. Martinet and Rodolphe Desdunes were disappointed. They put together the Citizens Committee to test the constitutionality of the separate car law. This got the attention of Albion W. Torgy of New York, who decided to help join the fight. The CCTC-SCL decided to contact the rail line companies who were disgruntled due to their extra car purchases. The East Louisiana Railway agreed to help with their cause. On June 7, 1892, the activists had Homer A. Plessy board the railway train in the car designated for whites only. With being 7/8 Caucasian, it was a perfect test for the law. When the conductor requested for him to move, he refused and was arrested. Plessy claimed that the law had violated his rights. He was immediately ruled against by a local judge. He then went on to the state Supreme Court and claimed that the law violated the equal protection stated in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. This was ruled against as well. But 3 years later, the United States Supreme Court heard the case. Torgy represented Plessy in court and made invigorating points. Unfortunately, he was still ruled against by a vote of 7-1.
With the overturning of the Plessy v. Ferguson case, segregation became announced as legal and therefore was more common. Many people were disappointed with these results and decided to speak out. Justice John Marshall Harlan stated that the Constitution is colorblind, and therefore when men are given the right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is not subjective to race. By 1915, nearly everything in the South was segregated.
Affirmed that segregation was constitutional as long as accommodations were separate but equal. It also left it up to the individual states, not the federal government, to guarantee equal standards. As the lone dissenting opinion, Justice John Marshall Harlan wrote,
"The thin disguise of equal accommodations will not mislead anyone, nor atone for the wrong this day done."
Plessy versus Ferguson became a landmark decision. It sanctioned a system of institutionalized racism that would persist for decades, one that would require a second period of reconstruction to overcome.
From 1890 to 1920, America went through a shift called the Progressive Era. Progressivism is a social and political movement that rejected social Darwinism and wanted to cure the ills of rapid industrialization. Industrialization brought many issues for non-whites, such as an economic depression that brought racial tensions and an influx of colonial imperialism in Africa and Asia. The Plessy v. Ferguson case is an example of progressivism. With the emergence of the Jim Crow laws, many people had issues with the separation of rail cars. Talented African American leaders decided to speak out and raise awareness for the cause. Although the results of the case weren't ideal for African Americans, it brought attention to the issue and started a push for progressivism. The Plessy v. Ferguson case is an example of progressivism because it represents the desire for equality among all races, especially when it comes to rights granted under the Constitution.